politics of fear and hate are wrong. We love you and politics of compassion and love are right.
We are not going back.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Raised Red, Living Blue. I am your host this morning, Jason Will. Sloan is not able to join us this morning, but I have a special guest, Miss Kat O'Neill. And Kat and I went to the same high school, and she was raised red and now living very blue. Thanks so much, Kat, for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate this. This is really neat for me. I'm glad to connect with you and talk about this stuff.
Well, here's my goal for you this morning. Here's my hope for you is that this is like a mini therapy session. You know,
Perfect.
One of the main reasons Sloan and I started this podcast was like the day after the election. We're both in real estate, and so we both have something to lose by speaking out, even though I do it I joke because she is a gay woman who's out of the closet, and I'm a straight man, blue dot, living in a red state who's in the closet, kinda. You know, I'm kind of halfway in, kind of halfway out. But after the election, I was like, we got to do something.
Yeah.
You know, this is too consequential to sit on the sidelines. And that's through, you know, kind of getting out there and posting. I started to recognize your posts. And, you know, we talked a little bit before I hit record. That does require a great deal of bravery that I think the other side just won't get, because they are allowed to say things like Putin would be a better American president than Biden, you know, and all these crazy things that Democrats are just the evil of the world and baby killers and all these things. And we can't say anything about Trump or MAGA or we get ostracized. So just recognized your bravery there and just that common connection. But the side effect of this podcast is it has become like really therapy. It's been very cathartic. So I hope like after this podcast, you just like when you go to where are you going to, a soccer practice or a soccer game later this morning?
We have a soccer game. I have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old, and they both play soccer, and we got the 7-year-old game today. So yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I will say that I've had a lot of comments privately, DMs and to my face too, saying, you know, we've really noticed that you've, you know, put yourself out there, and that takes a lot of bravery, which is what you said, yes, you know, there for a long time, I wouldn't post anything political because Facebook was kind of this like, and my mom would say this, you know, Facebook is a place where you can go and just catch up with your friends and see what the kids are doing, see pictures and, you know, comment and say, you know, it's basically all happy, right? All happy stuff. And when I started posting, I usually go from Instagram. And so I started following a bunch of political content creators. And so, you know, a lot of this stuff is just kind of in my face, and, you know, because it's important to me. And it's something that in over this election cycle, and even, you know, before this, I've really decided that, you know, I need to put this out there. I mean, I've got so many people that I grew up with and my family that are MAGA. And so it's definitely, you know, and I don't know, a lot of them, you know, even would admit that they are MAGA, honestly. Haven't to my face, but I know that they voted for Trump, and I know that they're Republican, and they just need to hear this stuff because they're not being fed this stuff. This stuff is not in their ecosystem. You know, they're Fox News watchers. They're not diversifying all this information, and it's really important for me to get that out to them. And yeah, it's hard because there's that chance that somebody's going to go, you know, against me or whatever, but at this point it's too important. So that's why I started posting and being loud about it.
Yeah. When did this start for you? Like, did it start in like 2015, 2016, or did you give Trump the benefit of the doubt?
I did. So my story is that I grew up in, you know, a Republican family. I voted my very first election for George W. Bush. I didn't really pay attention, to be honest with you. And I have an interesting story. So when I moved to California in 2007, and I moved in with a friend of mine, and just none of it was really, I didn't pay attention too much to it. I listened to what my family was saying. You know, they're in whatever my mom and dad were, you know, talking about. I watched Fox News all the time. And so I voted for George W. Bush. And then I voted once I got to California, I went to an Obama rally. And man, I was inspired by Obama. And I was like, oh my gosh, this man, he's talking about the things that I care about. So I voted for Obama. And then the next time, this is really interesting because I was living in California. I was a registered Republican, and I just wasn't really in it. I wasn't paying attention too much. And I switched my vote. I switched my vote to Romney the second time. I did not vote Obama. I voted Obama Romney. This is all like I said, the ecosphere I was living in, which was my family, talking to me, Fox News or whatever. And then once I voted for Romney, then Hillary and Trump came, I didn't want either. And so I had switched myself to independent at that point, and I voted third party, which I fully regret now. And then, so I wasn't hard switch. I went, back and forth. I've done, it's not like I've voted just Republican, but when Trump got in, I remember my brother and my husband and I were in the same room, and we kind of laughed. I laughed. I was like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. Why would he win? And the full effect of it didn't really hit me until his first year. And I sat with my friend, Rachel, and I said, Rachel, we should give him a chance. Let's see what he does. Let's not go, because she was distraught. She grew up in a very liberal family. And so that was my first experience. Was I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and I regretted it. And that was when I went full, pay attention, news site. I was watching not just Fox, I was watching CNN, MSNBC. I was one of the ones that just couldn't stand some of the personalities. And so I started to really dig and pay attention. And when Trump was the policies that he was trying to enact, the cruelty, it just put me over the edge. And then the last 4 years, I was just full on, I was really paying attention. Of course, I voted for Biden, but I went from independent to Democrat in the last couple of years. So wow. That's my full story. Went, through them all, because I knew as soon as Trump was in there, he just was not it. And it's just gotten worse and worse. And so, yeah, that's the background.
Well, we're from coastal Alabama, you and I. Mm-hmm. You're now living in Nevada? Nevada.
So, yep, Nevada. I live in Reno. I actually still work in California. I work at a ski resort. And so the ski resort, most of the people that I'm surrounded by are liberals, but there are some conservatives within, who I work with. But my husband is independent. Like I said, he believes both, the diversity. And I agree with that as well. But it becomes so extreme on the Republican side.
I mean, what people, I think, need to realize is that you need at least a two-party system, because, in the absence of that is where you get wokeness, or where wokeness gets to be extreme. But the two extremes of both parties are very, very dangerous. And so you need, that diversity to kind of pull towards the middle. But it has just gotten, as you said, out of control. Talk about, so who in your kind of immediate family or bubble or nucleus, your sphere of influence, who is MAGA?
My immediate family. So I've got two brothers and my mom and dad. My sister and I are aligned. We have kind of been each other's support, emotional support. We can talk to each other about everything. She lives in Tennessee. I have family in Georgia, Alabama, and my younger brother lives in South Lake Tahoe. So they are the brothers, the Georgia brother, the South Lake Tahoe brother, and my mom and my dad they consider themselves Republican. I believe that self-identified, I would say my brother is the one who identifies as MAGA the most, younger brother. Yeah.
Did y'all get together for Thanksgiving after the election last year?
Christmas, and somehow we made it through without major stuff. I can't, one of the things, so my mom and I are very close, and I have a hard time not being able to talk to her about all the things that I'm feeling and the fear that I'm feeling with what's going on. And she tries to convince me, and I try to convince her, and then we kind of butt heads. So my mom and I are definitely the ones that I try to, convince her and talk to her, and it's not even convince. I just want her to have the information, because I just know that she's not getting that information. The information is strictly one-sided. And my brother's the same way. He's been pulled into the podcast, the brosphere, or whatever
The bro,
you
yeah,
want to
the
call it.
manosphere, yeah.
Yeah, so he's the one that kind of got pulled into that. And honestly, we don't talk about it anymore because he and I get in fights about it. But we try really hard. But Christmas, somehow we made it through without some major blow-ups. But it's very hard for me to have to bite my tongue because I want to say stuff.
Did y'all talk about it beforehand? Like, hey, no politics this Christmas?
Yes.
Yeah,
My mom is very adamant about it.
because she knows probably what will happen with you and your brother.
Oh,
You'll
yeah.
have a big death step and not talk for the rest of the holiday or whatever.
100%. And we've gone through periods of time where we haven't spoken. So
Wow.
it's definitely an effect of, just knowing that he knows my politics. He knows how I feel. And he does definitely try to convince me with the information that he has, which, I hate to just, throw this label at him, but it's mostly just conspiracy theories and just misinformation. And it's really hard because I want to share the sources that I have with them, but they don't trust them. And I think that's one of the biggest unfortunate things that I've seen from this is that they've been told so much that the information coming from the left or information coming from these different sources isn't to be trusted. And so when I talk about things and they're like, oh, well, where did you get your information? Well, I got it from this source, and they don't trust it. So.
Well, and I think, I've looked back and recognized this just from my childhood. It was not so much in my household, but definitely in others. And then after my parents got divorced and my mom remarried, a staunch, like old school Republican, that I started to see, some of the hypocrisy and things like that. But do you remember just like the demonization of the Democratic Party and really like the demonization of states like California? It's like, I can remember growing up and people saying, well, there's no wonder. I mean, the reason California has earthquakes and wildfires is because they're all a bunch of pagans out there and God's, blasted them.
Yeah, you know how long I've been out here? So I moved to California, and I promise you, it wasn't at first, but then, well, California, it's just so expensive out there and, whatever. And I'm like, well, the cost of living is high, but I also make a lot more money. And so, you're kind of, and yes, it is, it's expensive here too. And it's just because it's desirable. It's beautiful out here.
Yeah.
I mean, come out here and visit. It is a beautiful place, and the weather is amazing.
Sorry to interrupt. If I could afford to move to California tomorrow or today, I would.
Yeah, and it's just, I think that's the problem is that, my friends, when I had my wedding in California, why aren't you having your wedding in Alabama? That's where you grew up. Well, because I love it out here. This is where I live, and it's beautiful. And come visit and come, explore. And I think that's the thing is that yes, there was this huge. We've talked about Gavin Newsom. I have some feelings about that man, but there's a lot of things that that were thrown at go with your liberal governor and this and that and the other. So there's just demonization from people that don't live it.
I wonder if your parents feel like some of this, like you've had this brainwashing effect from moving out west.
Oh yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that, because I think that one of the hardest things for my brother was I used to be, and my mom, you used to be so conservative. What happened? That's the, they don't understand the evolution, and they don't understand, but also my mom does kind of understand. She's explained to my dad, because my dad gets so upset about this, because my dad actually does not like the posts. And
that you're making?
That I'm making. And my sister, yeah. I think he believes that he thinks that we're trying to force him to see it, even though he doesn't really understand the algorithm and understanding, that when he interacts with things or watches things, whatever, it's going to show you more. And he doesn't really understand that also that the Facebook feed isn't all of his friends, it's just him. So I think that, honestly, the things that we were posting, they thought that all of their people were seeing it. And it was embarrassing to them, which is so frustrating. It's like, I'm not posting some of the things I get kind of heated, but a lot of a lot of things I'm posting are just articles and information. I'm trying really hard to just educate, which, it's a lost cause at some point, but, I'm hoping that people are at least trying to explore other information. That's my hope, is like, even if I get one person that I can say, to open their, mind to a little bit different information. So yes, there's lots of demonization and lots of I've been called all sorts of names, to be honest with you. Communist, socialist,
baby killer.
Yeah, honestly, the biggest thing is my association with Biden, because I'm a big fan of his, even though I know he's old. Yes, he's old, but I just saw his, he is actually, because my mom and dad are Catholic, and I'm like, Biden was a true Catholic. He didn't believe in abortion. He just believed in a woman's right to choose. And I think that was the biggest thing that I had to explain to my mom. I'm like, he said his deeply held beliefs should not get in the way of his belief that a woman should choose their own body, but what they want to do with their body. And that's how I believe, we should have a choice. And, I've had conversations with people that say, well, I'm not really, I'm not pro-life, but I'm not pro-choice, but I just believe that the doctor and the woman should be able to should talk about it. I'm like, that's pro-choice. If they don't want the label. They just don't want to say that, go there and say, yes, I am pro-choice, and I am, proud of that. So it's just that the labels, being labeled, I get called all the time, liberal and, whatever, just like as a derogatory thing.
Yeah, it's nuts. Can I ask you about your religious affiliation, or is that out of bounds?
No, that's fine.
So you mentioned Catholic. Are you still
No, I'm not Catholic. So this is interesting. So no, my husband grew up Catholic. He was, went through confirmation, but he's not practicing anymore. My mom and dad would really love for us to be in the church. And, I have faith, but we don't go to church. But that's really been hard for me, honestly. My sister and I both have that. My sister is, her children are Catholic, her husband's Catholic. I don't think she went through the program, but she goes to church. And same thing, my mom and dad went through and did the RCIA, is what it's called. And they went through and actually were confirmed Catholic. We did not grow up Catholic. So that's interesting. They've converted. But that's the hardest thing for me, honestly, talking to my mom about, faith is everything, and I said, yeah, I don't understand how you can have this much faith and be such a devout Catholic and still support that person, and it's just, they make excuses. And that's so frustrating for me, is to, have such conviction and such, and again, my mom is a good person. She does faith through works. She's so involved in her community, and she does all the things that a good Christian person would do. But supporting that man just makes my skin crawl. I can't imagine having faith and believing in God and not understanding that that man is the complete opposite of what Christ would want. And, and the fact that it's just everything about it. It just makes my skin crawl. But yeah, faith for me, I do have faith, but I don't, I'm not practicing. And I've had a hard time with that, because I believe that there's so much there are so many people that are using their faith in a bad way. They're saying they're Christians and they're not living that life.
Or they're turning, a blind eye to a lot of the rhetoric and actions and cruelty. I mean, that's a big word that
Absolutely.
I associate with this administration. We've gone from the 70s, 80s, 90s, the 2000s. It was like, from the right, it was the politics of fear. I really feel like now we're in the politics of cruelty, which is really, really sad. But I also am very nostalgic about, when we grew up, is that, if we talk politics, it was inside the home. It was really never outside the home. And then it was just kind of this unspoken rule. If you were out with friends, I'm sure if you can probably remember a time you're out with girlfriends, you're like, hey, no politics, no religion. It was just a thing. I don't think we can put that genie back in the bottle, sadly, but it's a problem. When you started posting, you're not getting feeling the heat from your new circle out west. You're feeling the heat from your associations here in the Deep South, correct?
I think people just kind of roll their eyes a little bit sometimes. The people that I'm getting comments from are definitely my progressive friends, and in mostly, they're saying, I appreciate you posting. Thank you for doing this. It's really important. But there hasn't really been any comments. I've had some like back and forths with some people. I've had a couple of DMs from people that I knew in high school, but I wasn't friends with. And they just kind of popped off and said some things. And I was like, you don't even know me. I mean, like it's just one of those things where I'm happy to have a conversation with you. I'm happy to share my information with you. Wade Bradley's one of them. I mean, to say just, and I don't know if we're supposed to say this, but he's one of those things that just, we have those back and forths and I'm trying really hard to share information, but it's just kind of, it's at some point, certain people are not going to change their minds. But yes, the back and forths and stuff with friends. And I have friends I know that they're talking to their mom or they're talking to their friends, saying stuff about me, but nobody's really my mom.
Catherine's gone off the deep end.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I know it. I can feel it. I know it's happening, but nobody's really, I think that there are a couple people that probably would feel comfortable saying that to me, but they just haven't yet. And I'm sure that my family, my dad and my sister had an interaction, but they've, worked it out. But it's just one of those things where, I'm not gonna stop doing it because it makes people uncomfortable.
Well, I've had this theory, and maybe it's naive or too hopeful, but it just seems like organically that people are going to be forced into the middle. Really, MAGA is going to have to face some harsh realities because, and it's starting to happen, but it's on a very small scale. Like you've got people that, farmers, or whether it is an industry, work related, how their bread is buttered, they're feeling the pain, or like somebody that they themselves have been deported or they know somebody who's been deported. There's people that voted against their own interests that are feeling it now. It's on a very small scale. I think maybe as we get into late summer, early fall, because we got to think, we just surpassed the first 100 days not too long ago, and it's just, to me, it's been a total shit show. And there's a lot of stuff they can't run from, although they try very, very hard.
I think this is the best way I would describe it is they're putting their head in the sand because they know that they've either voted a certain way, for tax breaks or whatever. And I think that's the most plausible is that I've always been a Republican. I'm voting Republican because that's just who I am as a person. And I am going to vote because I know that my taxes, I've talked to many people, and then also just they couldn't even swallow the fact that they would have to vote for a Black woman. To be honest with you, that obviously there are some people that might be a little bit more towards the middle, but they voted for tax breaks or these one issue things, and they're putting their head in the sand and they're not really looking at you have to be completely not paying attention to see the insanity that's going on with the immigration right now. It is so cruel. It is awful. And somebody within our, communities are going to be affected. We have people that are farmers that I grew up with. I'm not saying that they're MAGA or that they're Republicans, but they have friends that are MAGA, and those people are going to be affected. They're going to see it. It's going to affect them. Their retirement fund, everything's going to affect them eventually. And you're right. Like by the end of this year, the predictions that we're going to be in recession. So, but somehow they'll still blame Biden. That's the problem is just somehow this is Biden's economy because Trump says it. So yeah, it's just insane to me.
I've got a MAGA buddy and we just, we take breaks, but then we go back to it. I really need to be the person who says, no more texting or bringing it up when we're sitting around a campfire with a glass of bourbon or something. I just need to stop. But, like the other night, I just couldn't help it. We were sitting around the fire. I was like, I wanted to test the waters. I wanted to see if my theory was working. So I was like, how are you feeling about things? Do you think things are going good? And he was like, Yeah, for the most part. And I was like, holy shit, man. I guess I'm not a very patient person. I've got to work on my patience. But, just real quick, going back to the demonization, I think a lot of them don't care how bad it gets if they get to go fuck
Yeah.
liberals, because they
Yep.
just feel like liberals have ruined this
Yep.
country. And no matter how bad it gets, or no matter how, because they'll say things, oh, yeah, like Trump uses colorful language. Oh, he's not the norm. He's a breed apart.
Yeah. I don't like the way he talks either. Well,
Yeah, I want to also just let you know and the audience know that we have two podcasts now that we've done with a former pastor who very, very much raised red and was very much a Republican, but now an independent. And his whole thing is like, he is still very much a faith-based person. This has really caused me to really wrestle with religion and faith, but he's just very much pro Jesus. And he's like, I believe in Jesus. And, even if it's proven that Jesus was just a man, just the idea of him and the principles, like that's something that could truly make America great and make
yeah.
us great people. And he is just disgusted by, because he's very much in that community. He's got a bunch of pastor friends, even though he's now a real estate agent. But he's in these circles and text groups and all these things, and just like how can you be a follower and a teacher of Christ and allow this stuff to happen without speaking out? He is just in this inner turmoil that's really tearing him apart, quite literally.
Yeah.
So it's sad.
And that is something that I definitely we were just talking about this. I have a really hard time understanding how this isn't more of a thing, more of an important part of, I mean, I know I've probably posted this too, but I believe Jesus would have been, a woke liberal, honestly, because think about the things that he talked about, and the way that people are being treated, the cruelty, just watching what's going on with this deportation stuff is just gross. And I can't imagine believing that that Jesus, all the things that he taught and all the things that he believed and all the ways that he wanted us to live. And that's where you want to take that's the path that you want to go down. It doesn't matter, even if you believe these certain things, like, the politics behind it. It's that this person that you're propping up, the man that you believe that is that they've, put on this pedestal, is the complete opposite. He is the antithesis of this. And it is so frustrating to watch that and compare him and just have that. That makes me so mad. And I'm glad that there are some pastors and some faith leaders out there. I do follow some people I'm on social media. I'm on TikTok. I'm on, Threads. I'm on a lot of the different social medias, and I follow a lot of content creators, and there are several pastors that I follow, and one is gay. Actually, a couple of them are. There's a woman. I follow a lot of these, and that's the Jesus that I know. And that's where, when I listen to their sermons and what they're talking about, that's the Jesus that I know, and not the one that is being propped up right now. So,
well, he is using Substack as his form of therapy. You can find him on Substack. He's Justin Jones. I don't know how easy it is to search that or all that stuff, but
Justin Jones.
Justin Jones. Yeah. So he's really a really great writer, and they're just really good reads. So just wanted to kind of float that out there for the audience. It's so frustrating to me. Like my MAGA friend, the latest conversations we've had, he throws things out and I'll debunk them. Okay. So when we were watching the debate, the horrible debate with Biden,
Right.
we watched that together, and that was an experience. But Trump threw out that woke doctors or liberal abortion doctors were killing babies. They were aborting babies post-birth. Right. So, they were removing the fetus from the womb, however that happens, and then killing the baby.
He can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby.
And his wife was watching it with us. And he was like, "Oh my God, that's so true. I can't believe that." It gets all fired up. His wife's a nurse. She's like, "That's not happening." And I'm like, "That's not happening." He's like, "I know it's happening. I can provide proof." Couldn't provide proof. The next thing he jumped on was the eating of the dogs and the cats. And I was like, that is so dumb. He texted me. He's like, "Can you believe these Haitian immigrants are doing this?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I saw that story. It's so dumb." And he's like, "No, it's so true. I'll provide proof." I go, "Bring it on. I can't wait to see proof." He could not provide the proof. He made a post on his Facebook page about it, which I condemned. I was like, "Dude, you shouldn't be promoting this propaganda bullshit." I was like, I kept telling him I was providing resources. I said, the Republican governor, the Republican mayor of that town, the Republican sheriff of that town, they all said this is bullshit and please stop. And you are part of the problem. And then I recently confronted him about it. I said, I don't know where those people are. I think they all went into hiding or they've been deported or whatever the case may be. But I was like, y'all really brought a lot of stress. I mean, there were bomb threats. And he just blows it off. "Oh, nothing happened to those people. Oh, it was nothing. I mean, there was no negative consequences from that." But I'm just like, hey, can you see the danger of just having people, somebody who's running for the president of the United States and the vice president of the United States, both just spewing conspiracy theories without validation? You don't think that is a sign that somebody, to me, it is a immediate disqualifier. It's like, that's it. You're done. You're not fit for office.
And it's worse than that, because most of these, if not all of the Republicans that are in office right now are, some of them are complicit. I know that they want this. They believe the same thing, but they are doing a lot of this stuff because they're afraid of all these death threats and stuff. And so all of this stuff that is happening, that's being supported right now with what Trump is doing, is because the Republicans don't have the guts to stand up to him because they're afraid of the repercussions. And it goes so deep. I mean, there are death threats being, judges, families, all of these things are happening. It's so incredibly dangerous. So yeah, it's real people. This is happening to real people. This lie that, they take this one little thing and it's so ridiculous and they go with it and it puts people in danger. And until our family or friends or people are directly affected, they don't get it. And that boggles my mind. How can you not have enough? The empathy, the lacking of empathy is just crazy to me. My family, my mom has so much empathy, but I'm trying to explain to everybody, don't you understand that this is so harmful? That's what I try to tell people that are on that side. This is not just stuff that he's saying that's outrageous. It's not just rhetoric that that's just Trump and just ignore it. No, he's really truly saying things that are harmful and that will get people killed. And that to me is unacceptable.
The first term to me was such a shit show. And then we had January 6th and it's just, I tell you what, I mean, we can say what we want about Trump, but this guy, he's like politically indestructible. It's like it's crazy, frustrating. It's like I'm watching these people storm the Capitol. Does your family feel like that was a peaceful protest and blown out of proportion by the Dems?
I believe that the propaganda has worked. I believe that however, they didn't watch. I watched that with my own eyes. My sister texted me. She goes, "Oh my God, are you watching this?" How they didn't see that with their own eyes and go, "Oh my God, this is not okay." I've explained that so many times. Like, January 6th, was that not something that just disqualifies this person? He tried to overthrow the government. The answer that I got was, "Oh, I don't believe he was really truly doing that on purpose." It got out of hand, but it wasn't like directed by him. And that to me is just willful ignorance. That is complete disregard for any truth, because you saw that with your own eyes and then somebody told you that it wasn't what happened. They gaslighted you, and then you believed that. So they fell for that. So yeah, I mean, I've begged my, and I keep bring this back to my mom, because my mom and I actually have these conversations, and I can say these things to her, because as much as all of this as much as we get in these fights and we butt heads, I feel comfortable saying these things to her, because she and I know that we're going to be okay. I think that there's certain people I don't feel as comfortable saying those things to, because it just isn't, it's completely pointless. Sometimes I'm like, I can maybe I can figure this out with my mom. But I've said to her, I'm like, look, I gave her the information, I gave her the links, and I said, watch just some of the hearings. I watched the whole entire January 6th hearing. It was and 90% of the witnesses and the people that were testifying, Republicans within his, and now they're ostracized because they went against him. So anybody and everybody that was smart or had experience, they're done. They're not even in our government right now. That's why he's put all of these people that are so completely unqualified, because they're loyal to him, and that's it. No, there's no qualification except for loyalty to Trump.
I think
that's scary.
I think part of the stress and the frustration and anxiety that people like you and I live with is that, there was this campaign of propaganda about fake news. And you mentioned earlier Fox News. Like when I watch Fox News, it's like Sunny and 70. And it's like, oh my God, the libtards are such drama queens. Like, just let us fix this because y'all are a disaster. And then you go over to CNN, NBC, MSNBC. This is one argument I make. It's like there's like two news outlets. Is it Newsmax and Fox? I mean, there's two like big primary conservative news channels that spew this garbage. And then every other news organization, to include like global news organizations, are all reporting. It's very similar reporting. Yeah, the actual news.
The news.
And I make that argument to people all the time. I'm like, do you not see that? But that's the frustration, is that they're getting sucked into the fake news. The news they're getting is really fake. A lot of it is created by Russia and Iran and places that, in the Chinese, and people that just want to use disinformation to further divide us. And it's like, gosh, dang it, that's so frustrating that you feel like you're so convicted about what you believe, but somebody in, Russia created that narrative and planted that seed in your mind.
And that is what is so hard for me, is that when I see my mom watching or my dad watching, I say, that is complete propaganda. None of that is. And then they admit it. They're like, well, they are entertainment. They know that they're talking heads. They know that they're entertainment. They actually admit that. They're like, we know this is opinion, but they still are forming their opinions based on those opinions. And it's crap. So I'm having a really hard time, there are a lot, yes, there's a lot of stuff out there that is biased. Obviously, we know that bias is everything in this world. We're going to form our opinions based on our biases, but we need to fill ourselves with stuff on both ends. I do not watch those things. I get angry and I yell at them, but I don't not watch them. I am not, just in my echo. Yes, I will say I was definitely in my echo chamber during the election, because I was so hopeful. And I think I was like disillusioned to like believe that we could not be a completely racist and, misogynistic country, that we could actually elect somebody that was incredibly, good to their core and just experienced and everything. But that disillusionment actually came from the fact that I was filling myself with information that I wanted, but I did not get the other end. I knew it was happening. I knew that the podcasts were happening. I knew that Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and whoever, all these people, I know they exist. I watch their stuff to an extent. I don't sit down and watch full episodes of anything. I'm pretty clip oriented, but I do go and dig once I see something, I'm like, So I feel like that's what's missing. We're so filled with these, all these little tiny things that we're not getting the full picture. And I think that a lot of these people that are in their echo chambers on the right aren't even going into the left at all. And that's where I really wish that they would do. I wish they would pull themselves out of that echo chamber and at least listen to the stuff and say, okay, this isn't my opinion and I don't believe this, but it's something that I need to hear.
Well, it's not even like you could make a very valid argument. Like, don't go listen to the left. You don't have to turn on CNN. Just go like read the court records. Like read.
Yes.
Read
no,
the
I told my mom
documents.
C-SPAN. I told my mom that is. I'm glad you brought that up. C-SPAN. I told my mom, and they're starting to create more stuff that it's just information. And I told my mom, and she's like, "Where do you get this stuff? Where do you hear this stuff?" I listened to the hearings. I listened to Congress talk. I'm, and she said, "Well, where?" I said, "C-SPAN. Just go look at it. Don't go to Fox News. Go to C-SPAN."
Well, what about so I've read and actually watched the depositions from the Dominion debacle that Fox got into. Like I'm just
Oh yeah.
guessing here that they didn't, like I read in Rupert Murdoch's own words that they knew what they were putting out was false.
Yeah.
They knew it.
And they have defended themselves in court by saying no reasonable person would believe that this is because they're entertainment. They don't consider themselves an actual news network. That is in court documents that they have testified that they are an entertainment channel, not news. And it baffles my mind that there's not enough people that understand that information. It's all propaganda. I mean, like there are some people that report the news and there are some people that and most of them are gone now. I mean, all the people that when I was watching back in Trump's first term that I would actually watch, they're all gone now. Or Brett Baier, who's just gone completely off, like he's always been whatever, but he was one of the ones that I was like, okay, I can watch him and I can hear, but now it's just, he's full, on that end. So anyway, I try really hard to diversify, but it's so frustrating to watch bullshit.
This is something new we've been kind of doing on the podcast, just the last few episodes, but like, where are you finding hope, or are you finding hope?
So that's a really good question. And thanks for bringing that up, because you do need to find hope in things, because it's really easy to go down that rabbit hole of despair and just get stuck in that. And I am very frustrated right now because I feel like I want us to do more. And I feel like, we're all just living our lives like nothing's going on. And there's so much going on. And so I get a little bit overwhelmed with what to do. But one of the things that I did and my mom always, she's like, you need to work in politics. Why don't you just work in politics? Why don't you do something? And I said, you're right. I need to do something. I just get stuck in that. I don't know what to do. So one of the things I did was I went and I volunteered with the Washoe County Democrats, and I went door to door and I talked to my neighbors, and just having those little conversations with people and just communicating and forming those relationships is so important. And I think that, locally and just what I can control in my local community is going to be the most important, because those are the things that are going to affect my kids in their school. And I mean, we're getting, with the Department of Education, that was one of the biggest things that I was worried about during the election cycle is I have young kids, and no, they're not going to they go to public school. They're not necessarily going to lose anything because they're not needed. These programs are meant to protect the most vulnerable. And that's what I worry about. So just, helping those people and doing what I can to help the vulnerable is what I am going to try to do, and just be involved more in my community. So it's hard because I guess maybe it's not necessarily, it's like something that brings hope to me, like for this administration, because I don't believe this administration has anything that is good. I just don't. But I think that this has brought out a little bit more in me to help other people where I can, instead of just stewing in my own frustration and anger about what's happening. So that's where I think I'm going to go with this, is just, trying to concentrate on what's happening in my immediate sphere. And yes, and of course, I am always going to continue to inform myself and try really hard to bring some people into the light, but it's not, that sort of thing. I've got to just focus on my immediate sphere. So
What do you have any predictions on how do you think this is going to end up?
God, I keep hoping something is going to happen and people are going to go, that's the thing. But it's like, there have been so many things that I don't know how he can be destroyed. But my prediction, I think what will likely happen is that it just is going to get really bad. I think we're going to have a recession. I think that prices are going to just skyrocket. We're going to all just have some really tough. It's going to be tough for a lot of people. I really worry about poverty. I really think that poverty is going to go up, and a lot of people are going to be hurt. So I'm just hoping that I know the most vulnerable people are the ones that are going to be hurt the most, but I'm just hoping that maybe some of these people that are close to, they do these works, within the churches and stuff, and they actually are seeing the harm that it's caused, instead of just, this obscure thing. It's actually harming the people that they love and care about. And maybe this will help bring them through. But I don't know. What do you think? What is your prediction?
Well, like we've had some guests on the podcast who are actively making contingency plans to leave the country if certain things happen. There's some non-negotiables, there's some lines in the sand that they've drawn. We've had some folks on the podcast that absolutely believe that we are going to start to transform into some form of authoritarian government. I am not in either of those camps. Like, I don't have the resources to move abroad. If I did, I don't know. I would probably start with California. I really feel like if Trump doesn't, Gavin Newsom's got his problems, but if Trump doesn't stop fucking with him, that, the California
There was a thing, yes. Yeah. I mean, I think he should do it. I think he should withhold the funding. I mean, California funds the federal government.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, don't mess with California. It's not a smart thing to do, but
my hope is that, that it's going to get, that I don't want it to get bad, but it's going to get so bad, it's just going to force everybody into this place of reality. It is going, like, I feel like I saw a meme the other day. It was, titled Project 2026, and this blue wave is just going to wipe out the Dems. I mean, the Republicans are going to, wipe out or be wiped out by the Dems. I think there's going to be this shift. I'm just concerned about how ugly it's going to get, or that it has to get for us to reach that point.
A lot of people are going to be hurt, and I worry about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it came from the, you hear it from people like Vice President Pence, who said, like, there's just going to come a point where Americans are going to go, we're not standing for this. Like, we're not going to, we're not going to take this. But that just brings up another just talking point. I know you're getting short on time and you probably got to run, but like when I asked some MAGA folks, I'm like, how do you reconcile the fact that there was like a list of like 400 prominent people, from ex-presidents all the way down, like military, all the way down to like really high level staffers who did not endorse President Trump? And their response was, well, that's the establishment. That's the swamp. That's who we're trying to get rid of. And that blew my mind. I mean, like,
I think that the fact that Pete Hegseth, who was like, how do you say, oh yeah, that's the guy we want in charge of our military? Like, that is insane to me, that this man is, and then just the recklessness that he's, all these things, and they're just making excuses. Oh, whatever. That, to me, these people that I know are so pro-military and pro-veteran, and everything that is happening right now is just destroying our entire military. And I mean, all Trump wants is that for them to be his soldiers. He doesn't care about any of these people. He wants them to be loyal to him. He wants to do this military parade or whatever, which is going to cost millions of dollars. Talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. That right there is, what's the point? So I'm hoping that on that day, the protests are going to be more and more. I'm a little worried that, his end goal is to, declare martial law or whatever, and just like create this, we're in, I don't know how I don't know how he thinks, because he's crazy, but, just this is the sort of thing that we need to stand up against. The protests, are getting bigger. You're watching ICE be protested because they're just, masked thugs, running around kidnapping people. I just think that that's definitely, all these people that are in the government right now are so inept and so unqualified. And I don't even know honestly, I don't even know what these ICE agents have for qualifications. I think they're just like Joe Schmoes off the street. I don't know where they were coming from. I see all these videos and I'm watching these people. So anyway, to go back to the fact that there are all these really intelligent people that were in the government before, and that's the reason why the Republican Party really, it was smart people that were in charge. Those are the people that are now disavowing all this stuff. Why isn't that a bigger deal? Why is that not a red flag for them? All these people should be, they should be listening to those individuals, but yet Trump is the one. I just don't understand it.
Do your parents pay attention to like Kristi Noem not knowing the meaning of due process? Do they pay attention to Signalgate?
Honestly, I haven't talked to my mom about the election since I have had a hard time with it, because I want to talk to her about how I'm feeling and my frustrations, but I can't because it just doesn't end well. So I just haven't had a conversation with either one of them. The biggest thing that happened was my dad and my sister had a conversation about the post, but we just haven't talked about it. So I don't know. And I want to bring it up, but I'm trying really hard to kind of get myself, because I know how worked up I am at this moment.
Yeah.
So doesn't do any good for me to bring this stuff up.
They had a conversation about the post. What do you mean there?
My sister was posting things on Facebook that my dad didn't like.
Okay.
And so both myself and my sister are just posting things on Facebook. And so my sister kind of stopped posting, which is unfortunate. I've asked her, don't let that stop you from doing this, but she has taken that and kind of internalized that a little bit more than I have. I don't care. I'm just going to keep posting and doing my thing because it's too important to me. But that was the reason why they had that conversation, but I haven't really discussed it. So
I don't know. I might encourage her to look at a platform like Substack. I mean, just somewhere where you can get these things out, because if you put them out on social, you're gonna get the haterade that comes out. But there are I don't know. I've heard Blue Sky. I don't know anything about it, but I know there's platforms where you can find community, and I think that's that's the second byproduct of this podcast. The first one being just the therapy, just having an hour or so every week where we can just kind of unload, but also do it in community with people that are like-minded. But we've had people just DMing us from TikTok and Instagram saying, I just found you guys. I'm just so glad I did. I just feel like, you guys are speaking my language.
And thank you for, I know that I'm glad I've found you guys too. Cause my commute into work every day is 45 minutes. So I throw your pod on all the time. And, it's been really nice to just kind of hear the perspective that you guys, cause you're living in it. I live in a purple state and I'm surrounded by, my kids are friends with parents or kids that parents are MAGA, and that's difficult for me, but you guys are in a red state. So listening to the perspective from, the podcast of all the people you have on and talking about it is really important to hear your experience. And it makes me feel not alone too, because of the fact that I know that I have, similar people that are, in my life. So listen,
I live in a state where it is highly probable that Tommy Tuberville will be my next governor. A failed senator who, I don't know, he lives in
He's
Florida.
the dumbest box of rocks I've
I
ever
mean, the
seen.
worst, the actual worst. And I mean, I'm like,
He's just stupid.
is he running unopposed? Like, I mean, come on,
Yeah.
Alabama. I
Come
mean,
on,
we can
Alan.
do better than this. We need an Andy Bashir. God, I mean, that's what rolls
Oh,
through my head. Is like
I
I may
know.
move to Kentucky just so I can be under the leadership of a sane person.
And I will tell you right now, my governor, so we went from a Democratic governor to a Republican governor. I guess it was 22. And that was really difficult for me. But we have a liberal all the legislature is Democratic. So they're coming up with all these bills. He's vetoing them, but some of them are going through. Like it's not just like this deadlock. He is kind of working a little bit. He's a total piece of shit. I'm not, like he's a sheriff, he was a sheriff. He's MAGA. He's Trump, and he's talked so much. There was a hot mic thing that came out. His name is Joe Lombardo, and as this hot mic thing came out with, he was talking about the people protesting, and he called us idiots and morons, and how we were, so he just went through the whole narrative of how we're paid protesters.
Mhm.
And so the next protest and the next, every protest after that, people were holding up their sign saying, not paid, just pissed, and just,
I love that.
just like going again. But he's just so like, he's being held accountable a bit, so we're not, yes, he's MAGA, but he's not just one of those. So we're not under the thumb of this just craziness. Yes, he sucks, and it's not good because we're not really getting anything passed that we want. But it's definitely, I think it could be worse, basically, because he's being held accountable by the Democratic leaders that are in the legislature. So,
Well,
but
I'm
yeah,
still jealous.
yeah, I know it's hard. I mean, because we have two Democratic senators, so thank goodness, and two females actually. So, and they don't always make the right decision. I call them all the time saying, "Hey, I don't like this," or "Why did you vote for this?" But they at least are on our team. So it is hard, though. It's hard to be in this place where you don't know who you're like. You have like-minded friends, and most of my friends are like-minded, which is nice.
I'm going to second the feelings from your mom that you should get more involved in politics. I really feel like, I don't know, to me, I feel like I'm looking at a politician. You just kind of embody that. I sadly have such a checkered past that
I know. Yeah,
too much would come out of the closet for me. Too much baggage.
I mean, the unfortunate thing about growing up in a small town is I was not necessarily a bad kid, but I definitely was not. I ran around doing things I shouldn't have been doing, and I'm not even really worried about. I'm mostly worried about the fact that my family and the people that I love would be affected by that. So I think that's the hardest thing. So, but I do want to. Getting involved is important to me. So I do, I get involved as much as I can.
Well, just keep making those baby steps, and send anybody that needs a therapy session. If you go throughout your day to day and you're like, wow, I feel good or better than usual, send them our way. We'd love to talk to them, even if it's offline. So
yeah, definitely. I will. And I'm glad we got to connect, and it's really nice to have. I have several friends that are in Alabama that have messaged me and said thank you for posting this stuff. It's really hard. I can't do it or whatever. But
anytime you get your ass gets griped by something that's happening, or you like super passionate about something, just let's get on here and talk about it.
Yeah.
Kat O'Neill, great. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And keep up the fight.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Politics of fear and hate are wrong. We love you and we support you.
But America,
and love are right.
we